Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I have a few rare moments today to share with you. And one of them being is that I have Annette, Franz back on the show. So that's a rare moment, meaning that I don't have a lot of repeat guests. And so this is one of my favorite people, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy what we're going to talk about today because it's very apropos to things that are going on now. But Annette Franz grew up on a farm in West Salem, Ohio. She's an animal lover through and through, and as a young girl had dreams of becoming a veterinarian. An intense dislike for chemistry courses, of which 6 were required to get into vet school, and a severe fainting reaction to the sight of blood awoke her from that dream. After completing 3 years of animal science study at Ohio State University, she moved to Southern California and completed her degree in management at California State University. Her love of math and writing came into play when she saw a posting for a position with J.D. Power and Associates. And 25 years of career progression through a variety of firms on both vendor and client sides later, she continues to call this customer experience space home. In 2011, she started her blog at CX Journey as a way to share her passion for all things customer experience to help companies not only understand the importance of the employee experience and its role in delivering an exceptional customer experience, but also to transform their cultures to ensure the customer is at the center of every conversation. In 2017, after having more fun on side projects than her day job, Annette became the founder and CEO of CX Journey, Inc., a customer experience strategy consulting firm. She helps executives and client organizations develop customer-centric cultures where employees and customers are put before all else. Annette is also the 2020 chairwoman of the board of directors for the Customer Experience Professionals Association, the CXPA, after previously serving as vice chair and treasurer. She is also an official member of the Forbes Coaches Council, an invitation-only community for successful business and career coaches. And finally, she is an advisory board member for CX at Rutgers. Annette was named one of the top 100 most influential tech women on Twitter by Business Insider and is an internationally recognized customer experience thought leader, coach, and keynote speaker. She is also the author of Customer Understanding: 3 Ways to Put the Customer in Customer Experience and at the Heart of Your Business. For fun, she loves writing, working out, running, going to the movies and sporting events, playing on the beaches of Southern California, traveling, and hanging out with the boys. Annette Franz, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am ready. Let's do this. Thank you so much for having me again. I'm back again. This is awesome. And as we talked about before we came on video, you didn't do video last time. We only did audio last time.
I know, we didn't. So you're right. So you were back episode 39.
Wow.
And we added on to that bio, but you still have that issue associated with things that are not going to allow you to be still a veterinary.
Yes.
But you also added the book. You've added a lot of other experiences in regards to working with client organizations. I just had the opportunity to see you be a keynote speaker at a conference before this COVID-19 thing hit. We're going to talk a little bit about that in the customer experience. But I really wanted to get into your book because I really enjoyed reading it. Also, you give some awesome tools that we're also going to put on your show notes page as well. But you talk about 3 ways in order to be able to put the customer, actually in the customer experience. You talk about listen, characterize, and empathize. But you mentioned that there are 4 reasons businesses actually struggle with delivering the experience customers desire. What are those 4?
Yeah, you're going to test me. You're going to test me. It's a good thing I wrote them down beforehand. First of all, I want to say I love your backdrop there. Thank you for putting the book up behind you. I actually have a poster of the book on the wall behind me, but my office is very not conducive to being on video with light and whatnot from windows back here. So, but thank you for that. So the 4 ways. So, and I'll try to keep it short because we could spend, the whole time talking about just these 4 ways, right? So the first one is this thing called the CX perception gap. And it's about that Bain statistic from 2005. 80% of executives believe they deliver a superior experience, and only 8% of customers agree. And, those numbers have shifted a little bit, but it's really the reasons behind that are the problem, right? And I won't go into them in detail, but the first one is like a focus on growth, right? And at the cost of retention. So when we focus on bringing customers in, over focusing on retention, we do things like offer discounts, promotions, freebies, those kinds of things that are really just designed to bring customers in, but then we forget that we actually need to focus on keeping them. And then the second reason behind that is an ad nauseum focus on data and metrics, and especially the metrics. And the main offenders here, this started back in the days when I was at JD Power and Associates, where the car dealerships were saying, hey, I'll give you, a free Sam's Club membership, a free oil change. I'll give you my firstborn, whatever, but please rate me a 10 out of 10 on the survey that you're going to get. And that company is not focusing on its employees, and they're not focusing on their customers either, right? Because if they were, they wouldn't be so driven by moving that metric. And I always like to say that if you focus on what it takes to move the needle, then you do things differently and you do different things. And if you focus on improving the experience, so that's the first one. Like I said, we could talk this whole time about the 4. So the second one is misplaced purpose. So this one goes back to the old management adage. Purpose of a business is to create and nurture a customer. The purpose of a business is to maximize shareholder value. I just got ahead of myself there. The old adage is the purpose of a business is maximize shareholder value. But the purpose of a business really is, as Drucker says, to create and nurture a customer. The focus there needs to be on if we focus on the people, the numbers will come, right? I think that's the bottom line, right? We focus on the people, we focus on employees, and we focus on customers. Shareholder value, profits and shareholder value are an outcome. So I think that's, so it's not a purpose, but an outcome. The third one is around a misplaced focus on acquisition over retention. I talked a little bit about this already, but I go into a little bit more detail on that one because there really needs to be more of a balance. It can't just be all acquisition. And I have actually 3 clients who are CROs, Chief Revenue Officers. And that's unique because you would think that the folks who had come to me or to any other consultant, customer experience consultant, would be CCOs or, CMOs who need help with their CX strategies. But these 3 are CROs. They're overseeing sales and all that entails. And what sparked them is the realization that we spent all this time and effort bringing new customers into the fold, but we don't focus on how we keep them. And we don't even look at retention numbers. And one of them had, went from, oh my gosh, we just suddenly looked at retention numbers and went, what are we doing? This is insane. So, and then the fourth one is really about forgetting that there are humans involved, forgetting that customers are not account numbers, forgetting that this is really about the people. And I think that's a really important one. So those are the 4 in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, and you also talk, so part of that, you in the book, you talk about forgetting the customer's human, and I want to get into that in a moment as well.
Yeah.
But part of this is that reference that you make to an inside out in an organization's thinking and what prohibits them to actually delivering that exceptional customer experience. So if you could elaborate a little bit more on inside out and then what needs to happen.
So inside out is really when a business, when leaders within the business, when people within the business think that they know what's best for the business and think that they know what's best for the customer, and they develop products, they develop services, everything that they do is based on what they think is best. They don't listen to the customer, and if they do, they don't actually use that data or that feedback or any of it to I always like to say, and this is the flip side of it, right? The outside in, the customer-centric approach is no discussions, no decisions, no designs without bringing the voice of the customer without bringing the customer voice into it and asking, well, how will this impact her? How will this make her feel? What value will it add? What problems will it help her solve? And so, so that's, and here's a way to know if your business is thinking inside out. When you sit around the table, and this actually happened at a client meeting back in January, sit around a table and you are talking about the customer experience and the customer and the business and everything, and you say, I think the customer, we think the customer. No. I told them, I said, for every time you say, I think the customer wants, or I think the customer says or does this, I said, put $1 in the jar on the table every time you say that, because what you need to do is say, we know the customer does, says, wants, whatever, because we listen and because we understand.
Or just like you're saying, is if we have not listened and we do not understand, we're flipping it into a question, what would, and then you're exploring that, because I would dare to say that mindset is one of the most prevalent things that I even run into. You and I had a conversation about something. I put together an email campaign for somebody where we were really focusing in on webinar registrations, and somebody was complaining about the message in it, saying that it was too contrarian, and was worried about the tone. And yet that one had a 37% higher click-through rate than any of the others. So it's like, hey, the data just speaks for it. It's not, I'm not marketing to you. You're already registered, right? And you're part of the organization. It's somebody who's not.
Yeah. That happens more often than not, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, so when you start talking about the foundations, in order to do that flip, and the foundations for organizations to have a CX transformation that is successful, you mentioned several things in the book. You talk about the executive conviction and commitment, culture, mission, vision, purpose, brand promise, leadership alignment, CX governance, which we haven't talked a whole lot about, organization adoption and alignment, customer understanding and employee experience, and then the CX vision and strategy. So I think that kind of surmised everything that you've talked about up at this point. But when you talk about characterizing customers, you talk about using, empathy maps and really connecting emotionally. And so me, myself, I'm certified as an emotional intelligence practitioner, and empathy mapping is one of my favorite tools that I use for, marketing and lead generation and, service, sales. But from your perspective, where do you see value in using something like empathy mapping?
Well, I think and I think we'll get to talking about the 3 ways to put the customer experience: listen, characterize, and empathize. And I think it's really, empathy maps cover both characterize and empathize. And when I talk about characterize, I talk about personas and really understanding who your customers are and getting into the head and the heart of your customers, right? And those empathy maps will help you do just that. When you want to really understand your customers and who they are, just having personas that tell you, their demographics and their brand preferences and why they buy and what they buy, that doesn't help us. That doesn't help us really design an experience for customers. But when we know what's in their head and what's in their heart, what their pain points are, what problems they're trying to solve, what they're hearing and what they're saying and what they're thinking and what they're feeling, when we know all of that, and then what we know that they would like to say and what we know that they'd like to feel as they interact and transact with our brands, then we can design an experience for them. I think it's such an important tool and such an important process to use within the CX design toolkit, because again, you will have such a depth of understanding of your customers that you will be able to design an experience that's for your customer, certainly not inside out, definitely outside in. So
well, okay, so and you talk about journey mapping as a tool to help you, implement an organization's shift and, do the 3 things: listen, characterize, and empathize, right? In order to be able to have that customer and that viewpoint of the customer come into the organization and be front and center. And so the 6 steps for journey mapping, you talk about plan, empathize, identify, introspect, ideate, and implement. Of course, you go into great detail on those in the book. But for me, when I look at this, it seems to me like empathize, introspect, and ideate seem to be the most difficult of all in those particular steps. So, but of those 3, which one do you think is the most challenging for organizations?
Well, I think in a way that they are all challenging, right, in their own respects. But the one that I think is especially challenging, and I'll say, and it's really maybe not even challenging, it's more um, that people don't do it, and they don't, or if they do, they don't go into enough depth detail. Is the identify? Or, I'm sorry, not the identify, the introspect. So introspect is such an important part, and introspect is really about the service blueprints, creating the service blueprint. And that's all about that surface to core view. You know, the journey map is telling us what's happening above the fold, what's happening in front of the business. On, people call it on stage, right? It's the things that the customer sees and experiences and feels and does as they go on this journey. But the service blueprint is the surface to core view of what's actually supporting and facilitating, what's helping to create that experience. And so it's such an important step because it allows us to get to the root of the problem. It allows us to get to the heart of the problem of where the experience is breaking down for your customers. And a lot of folks don't even do that. So I call that the most challenging one, just because I think most people don't even know what that is. And if they do, they probably aren't going into the right level of detail to get to the real heart of the problem.
Okay, so you bring up a really interesting point, because I'm thinking for me, and a lot of times I'm taking all the things that we're learning here and pulling these into the Call Center Coach Leadership Academy, where we help to develop the leadership skills of frontline leaders. And so for me, as you're talking, I'm starting to think about it isn't necessarily the why we're doing the things that we're doing. It's, the things that are helping us do it.
Right.
And then we don't necessarily go back and look and analyze that in a way by which we can essentially maybe even get more out of those tools. Maybe understand the gaps between the way things are designed and the way that we're using them. I mean, all of those things. It's like, so to me, it's like, okay, yeah, we've been doing it this way forever, but not asking the question, but should we?
Exactly. And that's why, ideate is the next step, because when we ideate, that's the future state, right? And that's the ideal, pardon the pun, but the ideal time to ask those questions. Well, should we keep doing that? Clearly it's broken for the customer. It's delivering a painful, frictionful experience for the customer. Should we really be doing it this way? And yeah, I think so it's really hard to answer your question out which of those three is the most challenging, because they all flow together, right? And so I just say, if you start off wrong in terms of empathizing, if you don't have the right people in the room, and you have to have customers in the room when you're mapping the customer journey. If you don't have the right people in the room and you're not mapping correctly, if you're not capturing what the customer is doing, thinking, and feeling at the very least, then you're not journey mapping. And you can't be sitting around with a bunch of people just creating what we think we're calling assumptive maps. Those assumptive mapping sessions typically devolve into process maps or just internal views of what we think the customer is experiencing. The assumptive maps are also, I think it's a good place to start if you need to start somewhere, but you've got to get out and validate with customers. You've got to talk to customers about what the experience truly is.
And as we're sitting here talking, and it's, for you and I recording this, it's April 17th, and we're in the midst of this lockdown that's been going on essentially globally. I start thinking about all these journey maps. I start thinking about all this customer empathy and how it has just so dramatically shifted. So you and I had also talked about, transformation, CX transformation, digital transformations. I think all of that has just been absolutely thrown into disarray. And right now, companies are going through, you said the 5 levels of actually grief or whatever. Talk about that a little bit and how it plays into the customer experience.
Don't ask me what the 5 levels are, because I don't know, but I think you started off with sort of where businesses are today versus where they were a month ago when we went on lockdown, right? A month ago, it was sort of like, and it was sort of, pardon my French, but it was sort of that oh shit moment. And suddenly you just put your hands down and go, or throw your hands up and go, I don't know what we're going to do. We're just going to collapse. We're just going to fold. And I think as time has evolved, people have said, okay, well, we can't fold. So now we got to figure out what we got to do. And I think a lot of businesses are in sort of that, well, what do we do now stage, and really trying to figure out. Some have pivoted faster than others and have had to, because, they're now making PPEs, or they're, ventilators or hand sanitizer, or whatever they're doing that they didn't do before. But others who are not doing those kinds of things will really have to figure out how to pivot or change their business too. And maybe it's not the product or whatever it is, but it's the how. How do we do it? And it's going to be different going forward. It's whether we're all working from home or whatever it is. I think that's the stage that companies are in now. And they're probably, if we think about it, you and I could probably come up with 5 stages here. But if we think about it, once they've gone through this, okay, now that we can't die, but we've got to figure out what we're going to do instead, or how we're going to do things differently, and then move into the next phase to implement and start to go through that process but I think there are those. I think each of us individually have gone through those 5 phases of whatever our, grief is during this period, and how we handle the crisis and how we handle what's happening to us, whether, you've lost your job or you've lost 80% of your business or whatever it is. We've all sort of had to go through those phases. And I think the important thing for businesses, for me, as I think about this, is that this is a great reminder that people really are at the core of our business, whether it's employees and how do we take care of our employees, or it's customers and how do we, you probably got the swarm of emails at the beginning where everybody was just like, hey, I'm here to help you. I don't need help from you. I don't know why you're even emailing me. I've never heard from you ever. Why are you emailing me? To now the messages are, some brands have gone back to just the usual advertising email messages, but here's how you can purchase online, and sort of gone that direction, where others have continued to, the airlines have continued to keep people posted on what this means for the business and what it means for your loyalty programs, your frequent flyer miles and canceled flights and changes and all those kinds of things. So some of those messages have definitely evolved from day one when it was just, verbal diarrhea all over us. But now it's become more about employees and customers. And so I think that's my point through all that, was really that this is a good reminder that the people are at the core of the business. And that's one of the major takeaways that I hope that businesses take as we come out of this.
Well, and as you're talking, I even start thinking that, more and more organizations are going to need your help and work because, first of all, their journey maps, if they ever did it, were just totally in disarray. If they weren't, doing it effectively before, and you talk about that study from Esteban, and only 2% of organizations, although 34% that actually did, any type of journey mapping had success with it, is that, hey, I need to get better at it. But then also, I think being able to understand what a future state looks like takes a dramatically different perspective than it has in the past. Because otherwise, organizations, I think, were really just doing and creating a glorified operational plan with their journey mapping. Hey, we'll get incrementally better. But now I think people are going to be looking to, hey, it's a whole new world that could happen.
Yeah. And customers are always really important to have in those future state mapping workshops. And they're even more so now because customers' needs have changed and will continue to change as we continue to go through this, and then employees will be really important to have in those future state service blueprints, because the way we do business internally, the things that we do internally to create those experiences different. Yesterday I had called my my mortgage company, something, it had to do with my escrow account and stuff. And the first rep couldn't help me. So she escalated me to the second rep. And when she got it, you could tell the second one, I don't know where the first one was, but you could tell clearly the second one was working from home. I was on a speakerphone. It sounded like she was in a cave somewhere. Every other word broke up. And I was like, wow, okay, yes, we are. But clearly, did the bank or the lender not provide her with the equipment that she needs to work from home to serve her customers the way that they deserve to be served? And so employees will be really important to that service blueprint exercise as well, because they need to have input. They need to let their employers know that I just don't have what I need to, and I loved using that phrase, serve my customers the way that they deserve to be served, because That's what employees tell me. When I interview employees at the beginning of an engagement, those are the words they use. And those are powerful words.
They are powerful. And so on the show, we often talk about favorite quotes that we like, because at this time, we definitely need inspiration and things to help us focus. And you just shared one there. But is there another one that you like that you can actually present to us?
This is one that comes up a lot lately, and I think this is a really important one, and this is about culture. This is because culture right now is your anchor. Your culture that you had before is what's going to get you through this and continue taking you on into years ahead, right? If your culture was not good before, it's not helping you right now, right? And so there's a quote out there, something along the lines of, and I've bastardized it, I guess, for lack of a better words, something along the lines of the culture, you get what you allow. Basically, you get what you allow. And I think it's important that a customer-centric culture, a people-centric culture, is one that is deliberately designed to be that way. One that's deliberately designed to put the people first, put the people at the heart of the business, right? And so I think that's really important. So you get what you allow. If you allow your employees to do things that are not in line with your values or your brand promise or those kinds of things, and you don't, I don't want to use the word punish, but if you don't course correct, then that's going to evolve and continue to be the way that your business is and your culture is going to be. So I love that quote. So, you get what you allow.
Well, talking about course correction, a lot of times we have to do that because of things that we've learned, right? We talk about getting over the hump on the show. Now, it's been 5 years or so since the last time you shared a hump story. Could you share one that has happened in the interim to help us all get over the hump?
Oh my gosh. You didn't prep me for this. I don't. Let's see. Can I share a personal one?
Absolutely.
All right. This is a good one. This is a happy one. You mentioned at the end of my introduction that I have 2 boys. I have 2 teenage boys, and I love them dearly. And I'm divorced, custody, 50-50 custody, and all this. At the very beginning of this pandemic, the boys decided that they want to live with me 100% of the time. And so they've been here through this. So, I love them to death. I'm turning red. I love them to death. And so to have them here with me when I'm locked in the house 24/7 is amazing. We've done some really fun things. They want to bake, they want to cook, they want to make things. And so we've spent, our evenings doing some of those things. So that's been a lot of fun. So that is my hump day. That is what's gotten me through the last 30 to 40 days so far. So it's been pretty awesome.
Well, that is awesome. And thanks for sharing. And similarly, although kicking and screaming often, I've brought my kids into the kitchen and they don't like it, but after a while they start getting into it. And I said, look, I hate, this is going to happen again. I mean, talking about the new normal will be every so many years. Something like this is going to happen. Yeah. We're just becoming more global in our society, and it's just going to be difficult to prevent. The key is whether or not we learn and have our healthcare systems being able to handle it, right? But there's stories that are going around saying a lot of these younger kids who haven't had those types of experiences in time don't know how to survive on their own, and
right?
They can't make anything.
I can't, and it's so funny. Just another very personal thing, and they'll kill me for saying this, but I like at dinner and teaching manners and etiquette and all of that, which I've done all along. And every time I say something about whatever the manner is that we're talking about, I'll go, "Your future wife is going to thank me." Just saying.
Probably her parents.
Right?
Well, I also had an opportunity to talk about, what's next and where things are going, where we're going and all of that. And, you talked about, your speaking work and how that's kind of shifted with all the things that are happening. But you talked about some goals and objectives. You talked about this book, and you told me one thing I wasn't allowed to share, so I won't. But when you start talking about one goal that you have for your future, what would it be?
Well, is this post-pandemic when we're back to whatever the new, I hate that term now, but it is, everybody's using it, the new normal. Would that be, is it okay to say retire in 10 years? I don't know if that's even how we were joking before, that we'll probably all be working till 80 now because we're going to spend all of our own money, our savings for this. But I would say, you know what? I would say getting back on the, speaking circuit and speaking more and getting the message out there more. For me, that's a big goal. And I was excited with some of the things that I had lined up for this year. I'm hoping that they'll come back around next year and take this message out to audiences at large. I've done some virtual summits where I'm sharing this message about the 8 principles of a customer-centric organization. The feedback has been really amazing. And so that's the message I want to keep getting out there, is that people really understand what that is, what it means, and how to achieve that. So that's hopefully 2021 will bring more in-person events.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Annette. Hold on is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Annette, Franz, are you ready to hoe down?
I'm stressed out. I don't know. And we have not prepared for this, so I have no idea what he's going to ask me. So, okay, fire away. Here we go.
So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
I hate to say it, but fear, and a fear of the unknown, I guess.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Take care of your people. Put your people first and take care of your people.
And what is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
I live by my calendar. I'm organized like you wouldn't believe, and I live by my calendar, and that's my secret.
And what do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
My calendar. My calendar and this dreadful thing here.
So what would be one book that you'd recommend to our Legion? It could be from any genre. Of course, we're going to put a link to Customer Understanding on your show notes page. Yep. We'll also put a link to the resources page that you actually mentioned in the back of the book as well.
Nice. Thank you. There's one book, and this is a great leadership book, and it goes along with the advice that I just gave about care about your people. It's a book called Everybody Matters, and it's by Bob Chapman, who is the CEO of Barry Wehmiller. You will not be disappointed.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/AnnetteFranz2, because she's been on before. Okay, Annette, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question.
All right.
You were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you can take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take it all. You can only take one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
Have your tribe. I think that has been one of the I have a group of ladies. There's 5 or 6 of us. We text every day. We have worked together at various places over the last 20 years together. I've hired many of them to be on my team over the years. They're my tribe. We laugh together, we cry together, we help each other in situations, good or bad. And I think that is probably something that I would have established much longer ago than I did, had I known that at 25. And I think that's a really, they've been like, it's an amazing thing to have that tribe.
Annette, I had fun with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Thank you. And thank you for having me again. This has been awesome. You can find me at cx-journey.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to make new connections and meet new people. So thank you.
Annette Franz, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.